Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to SummerWorks Career Sneak Peek Speaker Series. We're fortunate to have Stacy Zousmer here with us, physical therapist with Kids in Motion in Highland, Michigan. Stacy received her graduate degree from the University of Michigan and her master's of physical therapy from Oakland University. After spending 15 years as a physical therapist at the Beaumont Center for Children's Rehabilitation, she transitioned to practicing in the Walled Lake Consolidated School District in 2015, primarily working in the early childhood special education preschool program. Additionally, she holds a certification in pediatric neurodevelopment treatment and is a certified kinesio tape practitioner. Stacy has a passion for working with kids of all ages, from toddlers to college students. She currently enjoys teaching at the School of Health Science at Oakland University while working towards a DSCPT degree. I'm looking to find out what that's all about. With the ultimate goal of combining her interest in scholarship, research service, and teaching in the field of physical therapy. So with that said, I'm going to hand this over to Stacy.
A little bit about myself. So when I was back in your shoes, I thought, oh, I really, you know what? I know that I want to work with children. I also was really interested in exercise and exercise science. I also thought maybe I want to work with, maybe I want to be a teacher, maybe I want to be a doctor. I really was very undecided for a long time. I was an undergraduate student at University of Michigan, and I studied just liberal arts and took some science classes and said, maybe I'll volunteer at a few places. So I volunteered at a place called MedSport, which is affiliated with the university, and they treat sports injuries. And then I went to Med Rehab, which works with neurologic patients. And I volunteered there just to get a feel of what physical therapy was all about. So when I graduated from undergrad, I pursued a physical therapy degree at Oakland University. And I still wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do because I was really interested in sports injuries and athletics, but I still really liked working with kids, and I'd been a camp counselor and always loved to be around children. So when I graduated from physical therapy school, I worked at Beaumont Children's outpatient facility, and I saw kids from 0 to probably 18 years old over there. And then, like Lori mentioned, I moved into the school districts. I work for a company called Kids in Motion, and my employer owns 3 outpatient clinics where they see kids of all ages. And then they also contract into a lot of school districts, and I work in Walled Lake schools, and I'm pretty much always in the preschool because that's just where my niche was. So I spend a lot of time with kids ages 2.5 to 5. So what do physical therapists do? If you don't know, or the one of you that was a patient, you probably can suspect that we are movement experts, and we know a lot about the human body. And our goal is to improve the quality of life through prescribed exercise and hands-on care and educating our patients. So we evaluate and treat patients of all ages, and obviously from 0 to 100, and even after that. There's a great need for professionals in this specific area because as we get older, there's pain, there's lack of mobility. And when you're younger, there's also things that PTs can address within my field. So we assess patients and we develop a treatment plan, and we work on not just pain, but also restoring function and improving independence and preventing disability as well. So PTs really have a profound effect on people's lives, and there's a lot of interaction with patients. We help people achieve fitness goals and also lead active lives. So there's a lot of areas that physical therapy specialties. And when I was younger, I thought, oh, it was all about pain and sports and, breaking bones and healing. But really, there's tons of opportunities for PTs. Some PTs specialize in oncology, some in cardiovascular health, some in geriatrics, orthopedics, neurology, following a stroke or a brain tumor, sports, and then where I work, which is pediatrics and children's health. And so it is an active job. Don't get me wrong. We spend a lot of time on our feet, and there's a lot of lifting and transfers and mobility, and we use our hands a lot too. So more importantly, we make one-on-one connections and we motivate people. So it's a very personable job. Here is my word cloud. I had fun making this. It's This just shows you all the different vocabulary we use as pediatric physical therapists. We work on independence and function and strength. And there's a lot of similarities to working with adults, but there's also a lot of unique factors of working with children. So are you a good match for a career with children? Ask yourself this. Do you like being kept on your toes? Are you energetic? Are you calm and level-headed? Do you like to connect to your inner child and be imaginative and creative? Sometimes I am, and sometimes I run out of ideas. And do you like spending time with kids? Sometimes it's frustrating and it requires a lot of patience. So it's very unique to work with kids versus adults. And what do I think is so great about working with kids? I love that kids are energetic and they're always curious. I've also noticed this with college students. And so that's why I've kind of transitioned to working in teaching for physical therapy. But to be a pediatric PT, you have to be a little creative. You have to have fun and realize that kids are innocent, but sometimes they're not. It's very rewarding. And you're not just working with kids, you're working with their families. And most of all, it's nice you can relate to kids because we were all once kids, right? So the philosophy as a pediatric physical therapist is that we look at the entire child. So we're looking at their social skills, their cognitive skills, their mobility skills, and we consider different areas of the body, but we also look at the context. And so, you know, where are they spending most of their time? Are they students in school? Are they babies at home? Are they active adolescents? And we try to treat in natural settings. So yeah, we see them in outpatient clinics, but as a school therapist, I sometimes go out on the playground and I'm in the classroom, and people sometimes treat in the home. And like I said, we work with families and caregivers. So understanding a normal child and how they develop is very important. It's critical to know what is abnormal. If you don't know what's normal, how do you know what's wrong? And how one system might affect another. So if your vision is impaired, your balance is affected. If your speech is impaired, then socializing with other people can be an issue. Also, we have to understand that kids, their needs change as they grow, and that's really important with children versus adults. So the goal of a pediatric physical therapist is to help children reach their maximum functional level of independence in order to participate and have the happiest and healthiest life possible. We work on movement and mobility, motor development, strength and flexibility, participation in sports and recreation, and very important that we are educating caregivers and promoting health and wellness. This is from my employer, Kids in Motion. They have this link or this handout that talks about what physical therapy does. And it just gives you a little diagram of helping with stretching, walking, muscle strength, balance and coordination, and equipment as well. So the reason I bring this funny diagram up, it's called the Icf Classification. It was developed by the World Health Organization in 2001. And the only reason why I'm bringing up all this jargon is because a long time ago, and even back when I graduated physical therapy school, we thought, oh, well, if a child comes in and they have tight muscles, you stretch them. And if a child comes in pain, then you give them ice or you give them some sort of modality to help, you know, with their pain. And what happened was we realized that we have to look at kids and people in the context of their function. So somebody with cerebral palsy is not just a person with cerebral palsy. That's somebody that has a family and has hobbies and has goals and might have other issues or health conditions. And so it was important that this was developed because as PTs, we're not just working on pain, but we're working on patients acquiring the goals and living the life that they want to live. And everybody's different. So it's important to look at this framework. And so if I use this ICF model, which we all healthcare professionals pretty much use, it's kind of like our language now. And if we use this and we talk about somebody with arthritis, we might look at their body functions and say they're in pain and they can't straighten their leg all the way and they're weak. But we're not just looking at their body functions anymore. We're looking at their activities and, you know, what do they do during the day? Can they bathe themselves? Are they able to eat independently? Can they walk from point A to point B? Do they need something to help them walk? And if they do, what is that piece of equipment? We also look at participation, their social life, what they like to do and who's there to support them and their family. Environmental factors are important. Do they work? Do they go to school? And personal factors as well, such as age and gender and health behaviors. So it's funny because CanChild, which is one of the forefront research institutions of pediatric physical therapy, developed the a framework and they call it the F words. And I want to show you this video because I think it's a little silly, but it also shows what we work on as PTs. Working with
My
kids.
favorite words. Have you heard of my favorite words, the F words in childhood disability? They all start with the letter F, and they mean a lot to me. They are related to the International Classification of Functioning, Disability, and Health, or ICF, from the World Health Organization. Please pay attention to these words when we spend time together at home, school, or during therapy sessions. These 6 words can help everyone understand what really matters to me. Some people are so focused on my disability that they forget that I want to grow up to be healthy and happy like everyone else. Here are my favorite words. Function. I want to do things. I don't care if I do them differently from other people. Let me figure out how to do things on my own. It's okay if I need extra time and practice to find a way that works for me. Family. My family knows me better than anyone else, and I believe they do what's best for me. Always listen to what they have to say. It's important that you talk to them, learn from them, and trust them. Fitness. I need to take good care of my body, especially while I grow. Please help me find ways to stay healthy and active. Moving and exercising are the best ways for me to find out what my body can do, which makes everything much easier for me. Friends. I need to have fun, learn, and grow surrounded by friends. I can learn from them, and they can learn from me. It helps all of us get to know each other better. It's so important that I have the chance to build strong friendships. Fun. I love this tiny word. I can have fun while I grow, learn, and have a blast. Can you help me discover what things might be fun for me? And can we find ways to have fun together? Future. The future is now. What happens tomorrow depends on what I do today. I don't want to let opportunities pass me by. Ask me and my family to dream of a future that is possible, and don't tell us what is impossible. Now that you know my 6 favorite words, please help me put them to good use every day. Are you with me?
So I love that video because of the pictures and because of her voice, but it really is true that as therapists, we are not just looking at pain and movement, but we consider all these factors when we work with kids and families. And this is what was the foundation of, if you've heard of patient-centered care or family-centered care. So as PTs, we evaluate, like I said, mobility. We even look at cardiopulmonary functioning, endurance, posture, balance, even feeding skills and oral motor, sensory and neuromotor development, assistive technology. So if you have trouble speaking, we work on using the upper extremity or the hand to use a device so that you can talk, and then other kinds of orthotics and adaptive equipment. So we're really working with a lot of other healthcare professionals on our team to help the patient. Here's some pictures of interventions. I love the therapy ball. I use it a lot with babies and kids. It's a soft surface, and we use it to work against and with gravity. And also the platform swing. I have this in a couple of my classrooms, and we use it for balance and coordination and strengthening. And a lot of other pieces of equipment depending on what you have room for. Here's a child using Lofstrand crutches. So we use different devices for walking, and sometimes, you know, the person's specific equipment changes over time as kids grow and get stronger. We also work on adaptive toys for play and different types of equipment for positioning. And then here's some more equipment examples. You can see on the left, I'm sure you've seen kids with helmets on. That's for plagiocephaly, which is a malformation of the bones in the skull. That's happened more recently because kids are placed on their back when they go to sleep to avoid SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome. And what happens is their heads are so soft that they end up getting a flattened spot, and then they have tightness in their neck, and that causes a whole sequelae of issues. And then also we see orthotics all the way on the right, and then some devices below for walking. So family support is, like I said, of utmost importance. We a lot of times are coordinating services with occupational therapists and teachers and physicians. And it's very important to be an advocate for the child. Sometimes with insurance reimbursement or in the school districts, it's important to have somebody on your team. Education is also, like I said, really important. Parents need to know how to best handle their child and make a safe environment so that their child continues to grow and progress. So where do you find pediatric PTs? Everywhere. This first picture is a little tiny baby in the NICU, or the neonatal intensive care unit. This is a very specialized area of pediatric PT, and they work on treating premature babies with that are on oxygen sometimes, and they help the parent with positioning. And acute care, sometimes pediatric PTs work in the hospital treating children after surgery or illness. Outpatient pediatric clinics are sometimes, like I said, affiliated with hospitals, and sometimes they're independently owned. There's more and more clinics opening up more recently. Rehabilitation is treating somebody after an injury, but a lot of what pediatric PTs do is habilitation, because we're teaching skills like crawling and walking that children still have yet to learn because they're so little. I work in the schools. So one of my jobs is to make the educational environment accessible. I support student success in the classroom, in the gym, and outside on the playground. And sometimes I use a group therapy model. Sometimes I'm just a consultant. And sometimes I push into the classroom. It's called pushing in. And I work with the child while they're amongst their peers and doing what they do day to day, which is really fun because I get to see therapy work. Here's some common diagnoses that we see in PT. Developmental delay is kind of like an umbrella diagnosis. It's for the child that isn't doing what, hitting the milestones that typical childs might hit. So if they're 9 months old and still not crawling, or 18 months old and haven't stood up yet, we work on developmental sequencing and strengthening to try to get them to catch up with their peers. Cerebral palsy is a non-progressive, which means you are born or right after birth affected by cerebral palsy, and it causes, sometimes it causes tone in the body, causes diplegia, which is two extremities are affected, sometimes hemiplegia, which is half of the body, quadriplegia, or you'll see athetosis or ataxia, which is a different presentation and can sometimes present as tremors. Torticollis is like you saw with the child with the helmet. You see stiffness on one side of a child's neck, and then sometimes you see flatness of the head. And there's stretching and strengthening and education associated with treatment for torticollis. And then you'll see a whole gamut of genetic disorders like Down syndrome, where you see low muscle tone and delayed development, or muscular dystrophy, where you see a progression of muscle weakness and sometimes affects breathing and swallowing. One of the more recent diagnoses that we see that you wouldn't necessarily guess is autism spectrum disorder. And a lot of times you don't necessarily think somebody with autism would have difficulty with their motor skills, but oftentimes there's kids that have problems with motor planning, coordination, they're more sedentary. And so we work with autistic children to promote participation in the school or in the outpatient clinic, and overall just motor skills. So I'm going to show you a couple of videos. I don't know any of these people, but I liked their videos, and I think you might get a better idea of what it looks like in an outpatient clinic what physical therapy might look like. So it just takes a second to load. And this is Tina.
I'm Tina Duong, and I work at Children's National Medical Center, and today we're going to talk about pediatric physical therapy. So pediatric physical therapists work on a wide range of diseases as well as ages. It could range from working with preterm infants in the NICU and with a lot of positioning and things all the way up to 18, 25-year-olds and working on how they're going to transition into school, into college, or into the workforce. If your child's to go to physical therapy, there's multiple environments in which that may happen. One could be in the school, the other could be in the home, and the other could be in a hospital or an outpatient clinic. I think the most effective therapy has always involved families and caretakers. The more involved families are, the better the outcome actually becomes. So the beauty in pediatric physical therapy is I find it a very creative way of helping people move. If a therapist is working with a child and they look like they're having a really great time, it's actually really good therapy. Because what's happening in the therapist's mind is, how do I want this child to move? I want their quads to work. How do I get their quads to work? It's not like with adults, you could say, okay, do 15 wall squats, and we're going to strengthen these quad muscles. Instead, with kids, you have to be an animal, you have to be whatever it is you have to do, you have to jump, you have to integrate that into what they do, what kids consider fun. In pediatrics, there's a lot of understanding motor movements and how a child grows up. And part of growing up is not only learning motor skills, but as they get older and their body changes, how they move may change or what they need may change. And so as they transition from elementary school to middle school to high school, there are things that need to be adjusted. If you're a parent who has a child in physical therapy, what you should really expect is to always be involved in the actual process. So you should always be in the therapy session with them for the most part, because most of the therapy that should happen not even within the treatment, but after once you go home. And so all this has to be integrated because the movement has to be learned, and it's not learned within an hour session once a week in therapy. It takes a group effort to make sure it happens.
So I like that because it looks just like one of the clinic that I used to work in, and those kids are so darn cute. But you got to see the equipment and some of the interventions that a therapist. This is one more that I like, and these are on YouTube. But
Introducing the Front Gate Outdoor Collection. Discover everything you need to create your outdoor escape.
Ready?
Ready,
Set,
set,
jump!
jump.
My name is Rachel Chavez, and I'm a physical therapist with the County of San Diego Health and Human Services. 6. You missed 7. Pretty busy here. I come in 7 o'clock in the morning and have my first kiddo up and waiting for me. Ready, set, go! California Children's Services is a program that works with kids birth to 21 years of age with permanent physical disabilities. Most of those are probably cerebral palsy, spina bifida, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Come on! Pretty much I spend most of my day working with kids, teaching them to be more independent in their daily lives and be able to do more functional skills. A lot of walking, standing, sitting, getting in and out of different positions, and just being able to do what's most important to them. 2, 3. This is a job that's near and dear to my heart. I feel really good about coming to work every day and working with these kids. I get to really connect with these families because we see them for long periods of time and get to see these kids grow and become more independent and see how meaningful my work is to them. Woo! You made it! I got you! It's very physically demanding. I go home tired every day. But at the same time, I'm thrilled that I don't sit at a desk. I'm up and about and playing with the kids and doing what I love most, helping them find their way in life and just be as independent as possible. 3, 4, 5, 6.
I love that video. So I like that video because you can really see how rewarding it is and how you see progress, and it's very unique compared to working with adults.
I teach, I learn, I treat, I invent, and I care.
Where did that go?
You have to be able to communicate.
Motivate.
Every experience is different.
There's no cookie cutter approach.
And it's rewarding.
There we go.
I strengthen.
Enable.
Keeps playing. We're going to go back to presenter view. There we go. Okay, so now how to become a pediatric physical therapist. And I want to go over this because when I was back in your shoes, I didn't really realize there was a specialty in pediatrics, and I didn't, and that wasn't my long-term goal at all, in fact. So graduating from high school is your first step, and you will get your high school diploma or your GED certificate. And then you got to think about taking science classes, although they don't necessarily apply to being a therapist. They're prerequisites and they're required. So working with kids is really important, just so you can affirm that that's what you really want to do. And I recommend babysitting or working at a camp or volunteering at a community center, and assess your skills and interests, because like you saw in the videos, it's a demanding job physically, and it does require patience and compassion and good communication skills. Then once you pursue an undergraduate degree, you want to gain experience. And one of the ways a lot of the students in college get experience is a paid job as a physical therapy technician. I worked as a volunteer in college and I got to observe, but there are tech positions at a lot of clinics. They all need help, especially now. And you can not only observe, but sometimes you get a little bit of hands-on opportunities to work in a clinic. And then you're going to prepare for the GRE. And I think most schools now do require the graduate record exam. Then you're going to apply to a PT program. They're all doctoral programs now. So you will receive a DPT degree, and you apply through PT CAS, which is the Common App System. So it's like one application now. And then while you're in PT school, everybody in PT school learns about pediatrics. You get like a little bit of content on children, and you learn about typical development, but you really do graduate as a jack of all trades and a master of none. So, from there, you can decide to do a clinical education internship, or you can try different like areas of PT and decide that pediatrics is for you, or maybe you just want to try it. And then you're going to once you take the National Physical Therapy exam, you are a licensed physical therapist. And as PTs, it is a research and it's an evidence-based practice, and we are always learning and taking continuing education credits, and protocols change and treatment strategies change. And so it's important to keep learning. There are clinical residency programs specifically for pediatrics. And then there's also what's called a PCS certification, which is a board certified pediatric specialist certification. And that's post-grad. And that's something that people can do once they're licensed PTs. And they can also do additional certifications like neurodevelopmental treatment or total motion release. There's lots of additional things you can add on to your license. So let's say you say, I want to work with kids, but I don't know if I want to go to PT school. It's a lot of years of studying and being in school. There is a degree, a PTA degree, which is an associate's degree, and PTAs, I work with lots of them and they're awesome. It's less school, less responsibility, but they are just amazing professionals. They assist with the treatment, but they don't perform the evaluations. There's also speech language pathologists. I work with tons of them. I work with them in the schools, and also I did in the hospital-based setting. Occupational therapists work on fine motor skills. So they work on the handwriting and the activities of daily living and using the upper extremities, following things like neurological insults or, developmental delay. Social workers, psychologists, special education teachers, nursing, medicine, applied behavioral analysis, which are the professionals that work with autistic population. And then there's adaptive physical education, which is a gym teacher for children with disabilities, which is also a fun and active job. So there's lots of careers in physical therapy. PT is so much fun working with kids, but you do have to be flexible and patient and creative. And, like Tina said, you have to act like an animal sometimes or play pretend, but it does bring you right back to your childhood. So understanding child development and thinking outside of the box is really important. And understanding how to work with families and communicate well, and especially loving kids, are critical. So I want to just point out my favorite author. Her name is Julie Lithgott-Hames, and she wrote a book called How to Be an Adult. And she has great advice for college and high school students and young adults. And she always says that we would all have an easier time if we accepted that all her F words, which are failing, faltering, flailing, floundering, and fumbling, which are different than Canchild's F words. But she says that these are disastrous, might seem like disastrous experiences, but they're all part of life, and they're actually our greatest teachers in disguise. Babies and all my PT patients and young adults, we all only grow stronger and gain balance when we fall and then get ourselves right back up. So yeah, I've had, bumps along the way in my education and in my career, but essential tough experiences are always teaching moments. You cannot learn in your comfort zone because it's too cozy and it's very familiar. So think about what you learn on your couch and what you learn out in the world. She also has this Venn diagram here, and I love this because she says, think about what are you good at and what do you love? And then how do you identify and where do you find belonging? And where all of those circles intersect is where you want to be. So I think this picture says a lot. So remember to explore all of your interests. Don't feel pressure to make decisions quickly. Follow your passion. And if you don't know what you want to do, it's okay to stop and think and take a gap year. Try new things, get out of your comfort zone, ask questions and talk to people. I learned so much from talking to people. I get emails from college students sometimes just asking me questions about my job, and professionals love it. If they like their job, they like to talk about their job. So feel free to ask questions to me or anyone else that you might want to explore career opportunities with. Remember that you all have gifts and embrace them. And the path is never linear or singular. So sometimes you might, I have friends that work with in pediatrics, and at one time they worked in geriatrics. So sometimes you end up where you didn't think you were going to end up. Be patient and remember that you are all unique and you have so much to contribute. Any questions? I lost my chat box, so Lori, feel free to chime in.
I tend to do that. Okay, yeah, so I was just working on sharing your contact information in the chat box, so everybody should have gotten that. One of the things that, as we do the speaker series throughout the week, folks like yourself, Stacy, have been so generous with their time to be able to share your experiences with everybody. I guess my first question after listening to your one presentation is, I know you said you'd like working with kids, but how did you really pick physical therapy?
How did I pick? Well, I think when I knew I liked kids, and I was also interested in exercise science. So I think when I was in college and I took the opportunity to volunteer at a clinic called Med Sport and Med Rehab, that's what really turned me on to physical therapy. I didn't really know much about physical therapy. So I think just taking the initiative and going somewhere and seeing what it really was. We didn't have YouTube videos back then, so I didn't really know what it looked like. And I think that, like, just experiencing different settings and seeing what PTs do. And I think when I thought about going to medical school and working in that area, I think what turned me on to PT versus medical school is that therapists work with kids for long periods of time, and you really develop a relationship with families and children, or even if you're working with older patients, you see them over a duration of time. And I think I really like that kind of interaction and forming relationships with especially children and families.
That is very interesting. The other thing that, we had talked previously about, you are now teaching at Oakland University, and you mentioned briefly in the beginning part of your presentation that you liked working with the college kids now, so I thought obviously it's just a little bit older than the pediatric side of things. Tell us a little bit how you got into the teaching, because it really sort of deviates off your normal physical therapy path.
Good question. Yeah, I would have never guessed that I would like it or want to do something like that. But I realized that college students really are preschoolers, that they have a lot, they're just all curious, and and they're really like interested in trying new things. And because I liked my job so much. I wanted to share it and I wanted to teach other people, what I learned. And so I started assisting in the lab at Oakland University and helping out. They would bring babies and kids in and the students would learn how to handle them. And so I helped with that. And then I decided, I really like learning and I like sharing. And so I started to go back to school to get an academic degree. And now I teach a class called Physical Therapy as a Profession. And it's for students that are thinking about PT, but not sure. And it's kind of like this lecture extended over a whole semester and including other areas of PT.
So from one of our attendees wanted to know, would you consider switching career paths?
No, I wouldn't. I love what I do. I really do. In addition, I'd like to teach, but I'd like to teach what I do so that I can show everybody else how rewarding it is.
Yeah, with today's, you don't usually stay with a company more than 30 years and get the gold watch at the end and stuff like that. It is really important for folks nowadays, kids going through the high school and colleges, that you probably will change careers more likely than none, at least 4 or 5 times. And that's great, right? It shows you're moving and developing and growing and continuing your education throughout your life. So yeah, it's definitely something that I personally have experienced myself. Is I didn't know what I was going to do when I was 15, and now that I'm older, I've changed careers about 7 times.
And it's great because you surprise yourself and you say, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I would love this, which is exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the challenges of dealing with children, not just the physical, but some of the other stuff that you see when you're on your day-to-day.
Yeah, that's a good question too. A lot of people say, oh, it must be so sad to work with kids. And it is. There are sometimes moments where kids are really sick. I've had some of my patients in the hospital or pass away. And it's been, sometimes just like working with adults, and it can be sad. But on the other hand, it can also, kids change very quickly and they learn quickly. They're like little sponges. And so, that's the flip side of that. But another challenge I would say is that you're not just it's a challenge and a reward is that you're working with the family. So you're a teacher and you're a therapist, but you have to be able to communicate really well. And you have to be able to communicate with the young population and then their parents, the older population, which is, in healthcare, that's really important, especially. So I would say communication is sometimes challenging and sometimes, there are sad moments and it can be a struggle with that.
That's interesting. We also have the question that if you could go back, what would you do differently?
I don't think I hate to, yes, there are some things in my life I would change, but I think as far as my career path, I don't think I would change anything. I wouldn't change a thing.
Okay, so you did mention one time during your presentation about things are a little bit different than when you graduated school and stuff like that. Would you say, in your opinion, that technology has advanced more and has therefore made being a physical therapist, no matter what age group you use, easier, difficult, challenging?
Technology has definitely changed a lot in good ways, I think, for as far as PT, because there's different, apps and biofeedback and things like that we have all these tools that we never got to use. But the protocols and the practice itself, just like any science, like health science, even medicine, like what we took when we were little kids compared to what little kids take, you take Dimetap for everything when you were little or Benadryl. And now, they research is so important. And so all of our practice is evidence-based. So over the years, they collect data, what works, what doesn't, does laying a kid on the floor and stretching them for an hour straight, is that going to help them? Is that going to help them walk, or is that going to just stretch them out and injure them? So, just like any profession in healthcare, we don't always know what works until we try it. And I think over time we see the benefits, and then we also see the risks and things that don't work really. So I think it's definitely changed a lot, and I think it'll continue to change. And like you said, I think technology is huge. I have apps on my phone I use with kids now, which,
Yeah, well, that is the means of communication with a lot of these kids. So good, bad, or indifferent kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So you had mentioned a lot of education, correct? So you went through a lot of schooling. And as I mentioned in my early part when I was reading your bio to the attendees, that you actually have all these certificates and stuff. So are there any specific ongoing education that you need to do to recertify yourself as a physical therapy? Is there a requirement, like you said, for the taping and versus, is that personal choices, or is it really based on what you want to do in your career?
It should be both, but there were no requirements when I graduated. Now there are. Every 2 years you need to update your license, and I don't know many people that have been audited, but you do have to keep track of all your continuing education credits, and you need a certain amount every 2 years to be relicensed. And I think one of the challenges and probably the only complaint I have about the field of PT is you put a lot of money into your education and you don't necessarily get all that money out. And that's a big problem now that it's turned into a doctoral degree. Everybody likes to be called doctor, but it costs a lot of money to be called doctor. And that's probably one of the issues with higher education right now in a lot of fields, is that you don't necessarily get paid back all the money you put in and student loans and things like that. It's not a high paying, it's a very rewarding field, but as far as being paid a ton of money after you put in all this money into your education and into professional development, I think that, they're trying to right now, because I work at a university, they're trying to decrease the number of credits right now so that people don't have to pay so much and have student loans to pay back. But there's certainly opportunities to make a lot of money if you want to own a clinic or go into the business aspect of, and I know plenty of, colleagues that opened up clinics or they work in, administrative positions and they make a lot more money. But just as a practitioner, that's probably my one complaint. And I bet that's across the board with most PTs, is that you're not making millions, but you get a lot of gratification in the field. And, that's something that you have to think about as a practitioner.
Yeah, well, that is something that as you're figuring out what you want to do, the work-life balance is a big question, right? And so the satisfaction, the gratification that you get from seeing somebody do something that they couldn't before they came and saw you, I've got to believe it's worth something. And if it's not money, it's just more maybe peace and gratitude for yourself.
So true. And actually, as a PT, I've been able to, spend time with my family and work part-time and jump right back into the field after I've had children, and, like going back into different settings and, being able to pick where I want to work. There's something to be said for that too. And work-life balance is huge.
That's great. My final question, we're at got 10 more minutes left, but I am curious. I've been asking this with my other presenters, is did you have any mentors along the way, like guiding you through being able to go to the career counseling center at the colleges, or where you had a job and the person at the job was your mentor and brought you along? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I personally think that's a very big part of somebody helping, or a bunch of people helping you guide through the system, so you're not doing it on your own.
I agree 100%. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing some of these mentoring things. And I think I lacked that a lot. I did not have that. I kind of had to, and that was before the internet. I had to kind of self-explore and see what was out there. And I wish I would have had a mentor as a student. I would have loved to have somebody that could have kind of guided me and pointed me in different directions. As a young therapist, everywhere I worked, I always had a mentor. I think it's a very friendly field. It's a very people-oriented, helping field. Most people that go into therapy like to help people. So everywhere I've worked, I've always had wonderful mentors, and I try to carry that on myself. But as a student, I encourage all of you to find whatever we had, back then there was like a little office you could stand in line and wait to talk to somebody, but it wasn't like it is now. And I think if you can seek advice or support or learn from other people's experiences, I encourage you to do it.
That's great. And then the other thing I would ask is, are there internship opportunities for physical therapists? Is it more like on the job training once you get your degree, or as you're going along to one of the things I like to tell folks is try it out. If you go for 4 years, 10 years down the line, and you've got all this education behind you, you really don't enjoy that career. Again, my question is, what would you say?
Do you mean interns, like internships when you're already in practice?
When you're in school.
When you're in school.
Yeah.
So when you're in school, part of your education is in the classroom and the other part is clinical. It's like part of, and so you're usually in 8, sometimes 12 weeks, you're in the clinic, and that's part of your education. And you, as a student, you do get to try different areas of practice. And so I was lucky back then. It wasn't easy to get a pediatric. I wanted to learn more about children. So I was at Children's Hospital, DMC, and I did a 12-week clinical. And that's where I got to get my feet wet. Sometimes that turns into a job. Back then they weren't hiring, but that was great experience. So as you get clinical education, and that's helpful. And you can also, like I mentioned before, work as a tech, and that can be somebody that's in PT school or somebody that's sometimes just in college and work at a clinic. I folded towels, people, and I got paid for it, but you can really observe what it's like to be a PT and get paid sometimes too, so.